And welcome to the November meeting of the North Miami CRA Advisory Committee. Can we begin with a roll call, please?
Mr. McDermott?
Present.
Mr. Clark?
Present.
Ms. Alfaro? Mr. Williams? Ms. Blamira?
Present.
Mr. Each?
Present.
Ms. Metellus? Ms. Cobo? Ms. Bronson Marcellus? Mr. Charles?
Present.
Mr. Missick? Chair, we have 7 members. We have quorum.
Okay. Okay, can we begin, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance? To our back. Okay, and I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 5th.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. We have a new format, and the format it's a consent agenda, just like the City Council. It has the minutes, and it also has other items in there. So I do have to read the paragraph before it.
Okay,
And also, if anybody wants to pull any items out of the consent agenda, they can do so if they have any questions.
alrighty.
Unless a member of the CRA Advisory Committee wishes to remove a specific item from this portion of the agenda, tabs A through C constitute the consent agenda. These resolutions and items are self-explanatory and are not expected to require additional review or discussion. These items will be recorded as individually numbered resolutions, adopted unanimously by the following motion that the consent agenda comprised of tabs A through C are adopted. Now, unless anybody has any questions, then we can do a motion.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on any of the consent items? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
I'm
All
sorry,
in
can
favor,
you
say
name-
aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Charles
Charles.
seconded?
Okay, we now move into the agenda items. Number 1, Ms. Executive Director.
Here before you is the legal, the agreement for legal services for our attorney. This item usually is at the October agenda. It was deferred to this month because we were working on some cost efficiency methods to save us some money on the billing. So Mr. Zelkowitz came up with a different scenario to assist with that. At the next meeting, I will bring the budget that was approved for you. The only thing is that the agenda this month, today is full, so I didn't have time to bring you. But at the next meeting, I will bring you the approved budget that the board approved that we took to the City Council and now has been transmitted to the county. One of the things was originally we had proposed a budget of $200,000 for legal services. It was taken down to $150,000 to fund other projects. So Mr. Zelkowitz had to work around that and come up with a new method for us to try not to go over that amount. Mr. Zelkowitz?
Thank you, Madam Executive Director. So last year, and thank you for approving the consent agenda because there was an increase in the legal fees over the budget by $66,807.60. That was due to a number of different things, including the CRA being involved in the P3 project, which is no longer involved in, as well as a number of infrastructure grant agreements and tax increment financing agreements for some major developments in the CRA with negotiations that went on and on with the developers. So in order to address the concern of the board, which was that, how am I going to not go over that budget again, I restructured the retainer agreement basically to provide for a flat fee every month. I took the $150,000 that has been budgeted. There's a flat fee every month for attending the advisory committee meetings and the board meetings and preparing all the resolutions. That's $2,500 a month. That is a flat fee. That comes out to $30,000 a year. And then the remaining $120,000 I've capped on a monthly basis. So whatever else comes up during the month will be billed at the hourly rate, the reduced hourly rate of $250 an hour. but it's capped at 10,000. So there is not the ability to go over the 150,000. Now, in order to address the issues with the TIF agreements and the infrastructure grant agreements and the developers, let's say, persistence to want to over-negotiate standard documents, we have placed an application fee in the guidelines that will be used to pay the legal fees for those documents. So hopefully that'll do two things. One, it will deter folks from applying when they're really not ready or don't have their project complete and ready to go for site plan approval. And two, will deter them from trying to over-negotiate the document. So with that, we have addressed the issue, Mr. Chairman. The budget of $150,000 this coming fiscal year will not be exceeded for legal fees and costs. Thank you. I'm available for any questions if anyone has any.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve agenda item 1?
So moved.
Who made the motion?
Second.
I'm sorry, I can't see your mouths. I
I'm
apologize.
sorry,
Who made the motion, Mr. Each?
Commissioner Each, yes.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Alfaro, our other advisory member, is here, so give me 1 second.
Oh, that's
Hi, how are you? Thank you, committee members. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
okay.
Forward to serving another year. It's been 15 years now that I've been serving the
Has it been that
CRA
long,
since
really?
its inception.
Time
So
flies.
thank you.
You were a young guy when I met you.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for your service, Mr. Zelkowicz. You've been a great advantage to the board. Agenda item 2.
Agenda item 2. It is that time of the CRA maturity for us to amend our plan. Some of you, Mr. Each and Mr. McDermott, were here in 2016 when we had to go through the process for the extension. It's that time again for us to update our redevelopment plan, go through the process, and also to add some projects that were not previously in the plan, namely the Solemia Park and the Griffin Community Center.
I didn't hear the last one.
The Griffin Community Center and Solemia Park. There are other items that we will update as we update the plan. For instance, we can now add resiliency and sustainability as one of the projects that we can focus on in terms of funding. So in front of you is just the timeline. As you know, it's a 6-month process. As soon as the committee and the board approves giving me authority to start the process, we have to start with our consultant, Kevin Crowder, an assessment of the market, what we've done to date to update the plan, have community meetings, remember the public workshops, then go to the county and start negotiating, updating the plan, and, back and forth again. And hopefully by April, the committee, the CRA board, and the city council will have approved an updated plan for us to take to the county for the county to approve and go through their process as well. So this is just asking you to give me the authority to start the process of updating our redevelopment plan.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve item number 2, to authorize our executive director to update the redevelopment?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Agenda item 3.
Here I have a PowerPoint. Junior, if you could put up the PowerPoint, please. Thank you. One of the things that we were required to do when we were getting our extension is that we needed to get certain projects done by 2024. It was in our interlocal agreement with the county. They had requested three things. One, affordable housing project, 70 units of affordable housing, repair, new, and we took care of that through our funding with the housing department. We've done over 80 residential rehab programs through the funding that we've done for 1155 Nomi and these other projects. We've already met our quota for that. However, the other two items were, one, either build a parking garage with retail with a minimum of 60 parking spaces in the downtown, or a redevelopment project on Northwest 7th Avenue with a minimum of $3 million of investment along the corridor. At this time, we did start through the P3, so the parking garage was morphed into the whole P3 process with the new city hall, a police station, and it took a few years. At this time, the city has taken the lead on that project, so now they are focusing on the P3 and no longer the CRA. So the only item left in the interlocal that we can get done, that we need to focus on, is Northwest 7th Avenue, and we need to get that done by 2024. This was part of, like I said, our agreement with the county, because one of the comments and criticisms that they made since we were created in 2004, we hadn't actually built anything. And we're still in the process of planning. We've done several plans, but we've actually not built any large development project, as you know, you've seen in other CRAs. So Northwest 7th Avenue is a priority for the CRA. So what I'm proposing is I've brought in front of you several projects that we will need to focus on, and with a timeline. So I'm asking the board to allow me to focus on acquisition and redevelopment of a project along Northwest 7th Avenue, which would incorporate, obviously, buying property, putting it out to bid for a developer, providing incentives for a mixed-use project of at least 8 stories. The Northwest 7th Avenue corridor on the east side was, the zoning was increased to 200 feet or 20 stories, so it allows for that. We need to do something so we can start attracting other development along the corridor, and that would meet our requirement. The second one is the Rooks Park Affordable Housing Project. Been working on that. When I say we, I mean the city and the CRA. We've been working on that for over 20 years. Actually, even before the CRA was created, I think. And again, it's been going on and on. We do have an application. We have a developer. The item is on the agenda, but again, we want it to be considered a priority so that we can make sure the funding is set aside for it before anything else. Actually, in the budget that was approved for this year, we already have $1 million set aside for cleaning of the property because it's a contaminated site. The mobility hub, we, I'm refreshing a lot of new members. For the past 10, 15 years, they were talking about a train stop on 123rd Street. Then it was changed to 151st Street. Well, it's in our plan, and through advocacy and working with the county and the city, we've made the request, and we've actually paid, the CRA paid for a master plan for a mobility hub that was done to show that 125th Street is an ideal train stop. We've done everything we need to do. Now we need to fund it, which means we need to put out the cash incentive available to attract a developer to create that development project for us. So it's not just a platform for a train stop, because that would not be a good investment of our funds. It is a full project. Parking, retail, apartments for that area over there. The other item, and this is an item that we actually, I was working with Councilman Timothy on, there are several multifamily properties in the city, within the CRA, that are at health and safety issues. Tons and tons of violations, tons and tons of issues. We only hear about it when it's raining too much, or they failed certain inspections, and so on and so forth. So we would like to prioritize identifying 5 mid-level apartments, about 50 to 100 units that are considered health and safety priorities, and we will be creating multifamily guidelines and focus on those properties to renovate, to rehab. So those tenants will not lose out. They will have a refurbished, properly done apartment that they can live in, and they're paying the current rent that they need to. Of course, on the back end of it, we will be dealing with existing property owners that have not been keeping up with the property, so we're going to have to work with the carrot and the stick what we have in front of us right now is the carrot. I will be working with the state and the code compliance to work on the stick aspect of it, and also with our attorney to make sure that once the renovation is done, they can't change the tenants, they can't raise the rent. There are certain things that we need to put into the agreement and on the property to make sure that we're doing this for the residents and the residents are not suffering. In terms of funding, these are just estimates. We're estimating the Northwest 7th Avenue acquisition and redevelopment to be about $15 million. Rooks Park, we actually have a request. So the request is $2 million to clean the property and $15 million for a 200-unit project on that property. The rehabilitation of the multifamily program, we're estimating it at $5 million. The mobility hub, again, that's the $50 million was already in the redevelopment plan. So that's what we would be funding. And the Solemia Park and Community Center, the Griffin Community Center, at $10 million each. That was what was estimated to build a community center. So once these priorities are approved, we're going to be able to now take out a loan and fund those projects within the next couple of years so we can see some traction. In front of you on the chart, out of all the projects that I've listed, the 3 projects that will actually create tax increment revenue are Northwest 7th Avenue, Rooks Park, and the Mobility Hub. Yes, sir?
Last one, I'm sorry.
The train station.
Trains.
Yeah. The parks do not generate any funds because obviously government properties don't generate tax revenues. So we would not make any benefits, direct cash benefits, but the indirect benefit to a community center obviously is an asset to the community. You're creating a park that the community needs to have. So for this current fiscal year, our plan again is once you give us the authority to start working on it, we're going to work on the acquisition, the redevelopment project, Rooks Park. We already have a financial manager. It's PFM Financial. They were hired over about a year ago during COVID. Their contract expired. I will need to bring it back to the committee next month for you to renew it. That's what it means by securing a financial manager. And then securing the financing for the priority projects. So after that, we hope to continue and just do actual development and to make sure that we meet our requirement with the county. The benefits of prioritizing these capital projects throughout, it'll help us generate TIF throughout the CRA as opposed to before it was going to be the downtown, the P10 with the master. But it helps us generate in the multiple districts that we have. And it helps us to build credibility on more investments, and we can meet our interlocal milestone. And that's the most important part of it that I'd like to stress on is that we got a 2024 deadline that I'd like to make sure that we meet. So unless you have any other questions, this is what I'm proposing and I'm requesting your approval on.
Yeah. With regards to the train station, and now I see what the county or the powers to be want to move it to 151st Street. There's been some talk about that, and with Johnson and Wales leaving, I think we really have to go back to the drawing boards through the Planning Commission and everybody else and look at that area between 123rd Street to Arch Creek Road from the boulevard west to the railroad track. And we should be looking at creating a compact urban center. The Land Use Institute has said you should work, live, and play in the same neighborhood. And one of the problems we have is we're only going to go 110 feet, I believe. And when I talk to developers, they're saying, well, that's not high enough, it's not enough density, and I think we're restricting ourselves. That is an ideal area to have a compact urban center, a good tax base to attract people with disposable income. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels. Some of these properties that are there now that are in Johnson and Wales, they were dormitories. They're okay for dormitories, but they're substandard for apartments. And I'm really kind of worried about that area, and I want to see this thing take off with the station, with parking, with multiple use You know, I mean, there's no reason why we can't do it, and I think that's a great project we should move forward with. I don't have any concerns with that. That should be priority number one. That is
Well,
the
that's
main
priority
street,
number
120
two.
Okay, well, two, okay. I do have a problem with the last one you said about going to help or fund
Multifamily
apartments
rehab.
with, what, 50 to 100 units?
Mm-hmm.
Why, what happened to the landlord? Why aren't they putting money into their project? Why are the taxpayers all of a sudden getting hit with the bill to fix up their property? That's not right. Nobody pays for my properties. I improve them myself. And, you know, I always had a saying, there was two people I distrusted when I was in the police business: dope dealers and slumlords. If these are slumlords, we should be putting them out of business. Code enforcement should be over there. The fire department should be over there. All the other powers to be. And I just, to me, I want to give people a good quality of life. But for us to subsidize a slumlord or a property owner who's not invested in that property, I think that's preposterous. I really do. I have a problem with that. And maybe you can add some clarity to it. Or do we
No.
take the property? Does it become part of our?
No. So one, like I said, there's a carrot and a stick to it. This is something that's happened throughout, Hallandale Beach CRA, Overtown CRA, where they were full of slumlords and other municipalities. But they found a way to get them to not only, they either sold the property or they came to the table and they agreed to make the changes that they need to. One, we are at like 100% capacity. There are no rentals available right now in the city. Okay. Just an example of the property where 1155 Nomi is, when the city declared it unsafe and we had to help relocate them. There were no vacancies anywhere. Now they are asking for me, it's astronomical amount of money for one bedroom, and the conditions are not, appropriate for regular residents, nor for what they're paying for. So I'm not telling you we're going to give it to them. It's a reward. What we are doing is that we're saying we're going to do this, but there is a list of things that you need to abide by. And we are going to make sure that you follow suit, or our attorney will come and we will, take over and get our money back and do what we need to do. But we visited, let's say, the Overtown CRA, Councilman Timothy and I, and Councilman Estime Irvin, and we saw what they did. That is a need. The multifamily problem is everywhere, along the corridor, and I'm not talking about a coat of paint on the building. I'm talking about mold. I'm talking about the elevators not working and the windows
there's no
and things
reason
like
for
that. No, I
That
understand.
should be the landlord's responsibility.
But for us
the
to bring
property
them to
owner's
the table, we
responsibility.
do have to say, we're going to fix it, and you can't raise the rent, you have to do this, you have to do that, but at least we're helping our residents. At the end of the day, I do feel bad that the property owner is going to benefit from it because he's not doing the work. But the 100 of residents that are in there, the 100 apartments that have 2-3 people living in there, those are the ones that are actually still suffering. So it is, like I said, a carrot and a stick. We have to provide an incentive to help. We don't have as many new projects coming online to replace these. If you can find a developer that's willing to buy all those properties and will clean them up and do that, then I don't have an issue. But right now, we're working with what we have, and we're coming up with strategies that's going to help the city, the CRA, and the resident, and not so much the property owner.
And the landlord takes the money to the bank at our expense because he doesn't want to do a darn thing to fix the place.
That's not how it
up.
works, Mr. Each.
I'm sorry?
Again, that's not how it works. I'm not going to cut a landlord a check and say, here,
Yeah,
take it to the
we're
bank.
fixing up his property.
But we're not fixing it up for him. We're fixing it up for his tenant. We're fixing it up for those people that are living in those apartments, in substandard apartments.
Years ago, there was I'm not going to mention the name. They had a couple of properties, slumlord out of California. And we closed them down on Northeast 6th Avenue. Okay, Lee Feldman was the city manager then. They closed them down. They had another property on Emerald Lake. And it was a dump. They were getting violation after violation after violation. I didn't pay a damn thing. And Johnson Wales subsequently bought the building and revamped it, made it into a dormitory. you know, this is very noble what you want to do, but I think there still should be some penalties imposed on these slumlords. I mean, just to reward them, I have a fundamental problem with that. You're in business and you're a landlord, you're supposed to provide a wholesome environment for your tenants, not where the elevators are broken and there's mold going and there's broken windows, so forth and so on. To me, that, and then here we are, the CRA, wanting to help these poor people that live there, which is very noble, but there should be some kind of a catch-all. Can we use condemnation? Can we go after the building? We can't do anything. So how about our code enforcement, the fire department, so forth and so on, the
And the
Department
state.
of Health going in there and citing these
Yeah.
people?
So again,
I
that's the
mean,
stick.
this isn't
That
right.
is-
I don't believe in that,
Okay.
we're supposed
Mr.
to take care of these people like that. These, Dave, what am I missing here?
Just to clarify, CRAs do not have the power of condemnation.
Okay,
They used to, but they don't anymore. There was a Supreme Court case that basically said you can't use condemnation for code enforcement or redevelopment purposes. Our job is, and our mission, our statutory mission, is to alleviate slum and blight. That's what our plan does. That's what Russia implements. These other concerns are all valid, of course, but the way to address them is through code enforcement and the city. We don't have the power to cite property owners. We don't have that legislative power. So, I can hear you, understand, and when we do an agreement and we give a grant or we give a loan or whatever sort of assistance we provide, I mean, there's always an agreement. They have to pay first. It's on a reimbursement basis. And as Rasha said, she just doesn't cut checks. So, we make sure that things are done properly. And if they're not, and that we have gotten, money repaid to us because, folks try to take our money, fix up the property, and then sell it and make money, and we get our money back at that point. But, the programs that we have are the same programs that other CRAs have, and this is how we go about alleviating slum and blight.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Williams had a question, and then Ms. Blamire, I saw. Mhm. You have to speak in the mic. So the mobility hub, which is the train stop, is on Northeast 13th Avenue and 125 Street, and then Northwest 7th Avenue is, in terms of transportation, we have the NOMI shuttle, the NOMI trolley, and we'll look at other transportation opportunities, especially when we do get the train stop. But for now, to meet our mandate with the county, we have to build a profitable development on 7th Avenue, Northwest 7th Avenue.
Okay.
Ms. Blamire?
Okay, so back to Commissioner Leach discussion. So I just want to confirm that we're talking about the Rux Park provide approximately 200 affordable housing units.
Huh?
Okay. How did we choose the location that we were going to provide these benefits to? What was the process in choosing this location?
Well, we haven't, no, this is about going to current landowners,
Yeah, it's two different projects.
It's a whole different thing. What we're
Rux
talking-
Park is a city-owned property, and the CRA also owns property there.
Yeah,
It was a
what we're talking
landfill for
about-
years, and we're about to redevelop it. It's been vacant and contaminated for over 2 decades, and that's a development project that we're going to start.
Yeah.
The multifamily is a completely different.
Yeah,
So how are
right.
we choosing the
The
locations for
ones
the?
that have the most health and safety violations as per code and the health department.
And have we identified who has?
So 2 things. One, I have a list from the code, but right now I just need you to approve it as a priority. I haven't created the guidelines yet. Everything that we do comes with a guidelines, a set of plans, and so on. I haven't done that yet because it's the idea of us removing slum and blight on these properties and helping residents. So right now I'm asking you to allow me to prioritize these projects that I need to get done. One, I need to finance it. And again, I will be bringing the guidelines to you for you to review and approve and provide comments. And from that process is where we can identify the priority projects that are considered, they're going to be, people are going to be evicted because they're going to be shut down by the city eventually and so on and so
Right.
forth.
Is it possible that we can prioritize homes instead of apartments?
No, because we already have the single-family rehab program that we do through the city and that we do through the CRA. We already have a program for a single-family rehab and up to fourplexes. We do not have a program for multifamily properties.
And then
Yeah,
my last question will be, to his point, is it possible that we can put something in place that those complexes that are going to receive these funds, that there are some basic requirements that they're going to have to follow once the city actually improves these apartments? Because if the person did not take care of their responsibility, and then you come in and you say, hey, for the benefits of the residents, we're going to assist because we want to remove slum and blight, and then you do not put anything in place so that the person never comes back to this place again, what's going to stop them from just letting it go again?
So, like I said before, that's what the guidelines are for, right? That's what we create a guideline to vet the properties that we're going to be helping, how we're helping them. The attorney just mentioned, any project we fund, the agreement is clear enough that if they miss any of the benchmarks or if they even try to sell the property, we have been successful in getting our money back. Okay, so that's like I said, the guidelines will come to you, you will review it, you'll have more questions, and so on and so forth. We're using best practices from other CRAs. Like I said, the Overtown CRA, we did a tour, and other CRAs also have agreements and guidelines set in place. So we're not creating something new that nobody has ever done. Okay. This is something that's been done, and there's about 230 CRAs in the state of Florida. So we're using best practices, and Mr. McDermott was at the CRA conference this past week, and he can tell you there are a lot of great things. Yes, you will deal with slumlords. That is without a doubt a fact of life, but there are ways for us to get them to come to the table, if not them, the new owner, or whatever else we need to get done. Attorney?
Yeah. Madam Executive, I just want to mention that we have developed and been using grant agreements over the last 15 years that have maintenance requirements in them. So once we give them assistance, they have to maintain the property in accordance with whatever we assisted them with. If they don't, then we default them. They have to provide us reports on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever place guidelines. And if they don't meet those requirements, then we place them in default and we go after them. I mean, one thing maybe we want to think about, I don't know, I was just sitting thinking, as part of the requirement to get the funding, you have the landlords come to some sort of training, that we
Absolutely
provide to make them aware and, of what they need to do, what their obligations are, especially. And as the executive director said, the guidelines are going to be coming back to you. Every one of these projects that is a priority is going to come back. You're not approving any projects, not approving any programs. You're just telling us that these are the priorities that we want you to work with, and when those projects are ready, the guidelines back and yeah.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Alfaro had
I have a question, and it regards the
a
accountability for the landlords. And I don't think this would be a top priority. I think we have a lot on the table, and 2024 is coming up very quickly. As far as accountability, is there an interest rate that these landlords pay on these loans? Is there any kind of, how does it work?
They're grants.
So
typically.
they don't pay any
Right.
any
So
interest.
we our commercial programs, they're all grants. So we provide money to them. They default, they have to pay the money back. Some of them have a forgiveness over a 5-year period. Say default in year 4, they only have to pay 20% back. The residential program,
They're all
correct me if I'm
100%.
wrong.
Everything is
Everything is now 100%. grants. So, I mean, it's
100%.
just so you understand, it's difficult to sort of administer loans, especially at, you know, the staff level, when you've got maybe people working. Have to become basically a bank, loan administrator. So it is difficult. So we did go to an all grant programs for both residential and
Yes, you know, our executive director mentioned that I was at the FRA, the Florida Redevelopment Association conference this weekend, and it was populated by CRAs from all over the state of Florida, and they're all facing the same situation. There's not a lot of new product coming out of the ground, but the demand for affordable rentals is just colossal. And one of the only ways they can fund this is through what we're doing here, is trying to, you know, with all the stipulations that we have in place, trying to provide, you know, those affordable rentals until new product can come online. And, you know, it's sort of like a stopgap in some ways, but it's definitely, one of the CRAs was telling me they have a waiting list for affordable rentals that he's, you know, they said it's like we could build 5 new projects and we could fill them overnight because the demand is so high. So, you know, so this is a wonderful way, or one of the ways that a lot of the CRAs are trying to, you know, to adjust the current backlog of, you know, affordable rentals. You know, and that's where the demand is, and this is one way to try to address it. It's not the perfect answer, but, you know, with the kind of situation, with the demand level that's out there, this is the most practical, I guess, to try and get people into housing.
And one final addition, again, this is not for new residents. These are people who have been living in those apartments for years. Because we paid their rent during COVID, we know a lot of them. They've lived in those apartments for over 5 years, paying $1,500 a month, and the standards, like I said, are subpar.
Okay, is there any other comments?
Sure, you have another?
I just have one question. As far as the acquisition of properties on North Avenue, and I know I've brought this up before, Nomi Red Garden. I know the CRA provided funds for the improvement of the lot. Is it a possibility we can look at potentially?
No, the city got that property through a settlement agreement. They have a lease with them for about 15, I think 13 years now. And actually, I think the city has found an operator that's going to operate it. But one of the things that I, if I'm not mistaken, is the property owner did not want to sell. So they came up with a settlement agreement from all the code violations, and that's what they have. So yeah, no, that property would not be part of the consideration. It's good enough because it's an empty lot.
Rasha, let me ask you a question. On best practices, you know, like when you have legitimate landlords that come before you and say, look, I'm going to put so much money into the building, but can you help me out and do this and do that? Like what you do with our private homes and so forth. And, you know, I understand that. Is there some mechanism or under the best practices, Mike, that you just attended this conference, where that landlord that has a slum, for lack of a better word, a deteriorated property where he just took all the money out of it, or she just took all the money out of it, do they come back? Is there a way that they can come back in with CRA funds and their funds? Do they have, in other words, they should have some skin in the game besides
They
the
will.
building.
They will. I mean, every grant
They have skin in the game on this.
they will. There's always a match. There's not one grant. The only ones that we have that have no match is a grant that's under $25,000. But as you know, every single grant that we've brought to you to approve, even the larger development, you know, they're, you know, 84 million and we're putting in 15.
Okay,
So there's
so they have to
always
put
a
money
match.
into it.
Yes,
They have
there's-
skin in the game.
Yes,
Okay.
they do. There's
In other words,
always a
They just
match.
don't come to North Miami, run the building down, take everybody's rent, give a place, crappy
we-
place to live, and,
we don't
oh,
give free
CRA,
phone.
you're gonna bail me
Yeah,
out,
no.
thank you. Okay.
Mr. Charles?
No, exactly. I just was going to, basically my question was where Mr. H just went on, so I'm good. So I got the answer.
Okay, is there any other comments on agenda item 3? Do I hear a motion to approve agenda item 3?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, agenda item 4, Ms. Executive Director, I excuse myself
Yes.
because of a
So you're passing the
in this
gavel
particular item, so I can't
to Mr.
participate in the
Each?
discussion vote.
You're passing the gavel to Mr. Each?
Mr. Each, who is our vice chairman.
Or the most, I can say the most senior member right now? To enlighten the board, and I know Ms. Bloomer had the question, Brooks Park, which is what we're going to be talking about right now, was a landfill that the county gave to the city a few decades ago. When the CRA was created, that was one of the first projects the CRA was supposed to be focusing on, and the CRA actually acquired 3 parcels around it to, finalize the plot. Unfortunately, the project fell through, and so the CRA gave the city back the land. In 3 years ago, the city put out to an RFP to find a developer who would be interested in acquiring the property and building affordable housing. Mr. Nick Imdar from Magellan Housing Group was the applicant that was selected by the city through a selection process. He's made a proposal to the city with, buying the property and what he intends to do. He also has a timetable to meet, because I think it's by 2023, he needed to get certain things done, or else he loses that opportunity and the city would have to put it back. His project is strictly affordable housing. It's new development, and he has come to the CRA for funding. The funding is split into $2 million to clean the project. Like I said, it's a contaminated site. And $15 million towards the redevelopment of those 200 housing units. So I'm going to let Mr. Imdar make his presentation. I'm going to, Junior, if you could put up the PowerPoint. And
Do you have a clicker for the PowerPoint? Or
I was going to be your Vanna White.
Hi, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Nick Inamdar. I'm a principal with Magellan Housing with addresses at 2100 Coral Way, Miami. I'm very excited to be here with you today to ask for your support, your partnership, in fact, in our proposed affordable housing development, Catherine Flan Estate. Magellan Housing has developed over 2,000 apartments, primarily in South Florida and Texas, with a cost basis of more than $400 million. I've been developing affordable housing here in Miami-Dade County for over 15 years. Over that time, I've completed 10 developments here, and 9 of them are very similar in scope to what we're proposing here today. We're also very familiar with working with CRAs. Our recent work includes developing affordable and workforce housing in partnership with the Overtown CRA, the Omni CRA, and the Fort Lauderdale CRA, also known as the Northwest Progresso Flagler Heights CRA. I have also served as chairman of the board and am a board member for the last 10 years for the Florida statewide industry organization called the Coalition of Affordable Housing Providers, referred to as CAP. CAP is composed of approximately 100 member companies that includes developers, financial institutions, and other stakeholders of affordable housing. In that role, I'm very active and engaged with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, referred to as FHFC, which is the state partner almost always necessary in financing affordable housing developments. Magellan Housing has offices in Florida and Texas, and we're proud of our role as a national leader in the development of multifamily, workforce, and affordable housing. Catherine Fawn Estates will be a true joint venture partnership. The developer is a joint venture between Magellan Housing and Royal American Development. Over the past 45 years, our partner, Royal American Development, has developed more than 140 residential communities, comprised of over 10,000 units. The reason we selected them is due to their immense success in developing and delivering affordable housing projects. They also have one of the most highly regarded property management companies in the entire state. I was pleased to hear the discussion about property management and maintaining properties. That's certainly something we take extremely seriously, and we're proud to have Royal American as a partner, as I mentioned. They are currently managing over 20,000 units, including over 30 properties in Miami-Dade County. In fact, Miami-Dade County itself relies on Royal American to manage several of their properties for them. Industry-leading property management and maintenance is a bedrock of our philosophy. It's also important to note all the government partnerships engaged to bring this project to reality. The federal government is involved. They will be providing financing through an allocation of 4% low-income housing tax credits. The state of Florida is involved through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. They will be providing oversight of the financing, oversight of construction, and ongoing compliance of the development. The Housing Finance Authority of Miami-Dade County will be providing bond financing and oversight. The City of North Miami is providing the primary site and has selected us to get this project done. The city owns the primary site and first put it out to RFP in 2018, soliciting developer interest. There was a second RFP put out in 2019. We were fortunate to be selected through these competitive processes, in which we were one of several bidders. So we have federal, state, county, and city participation in this project. And the last piece to make this all happen is participation from you, the North Miami CRA. Your financial commitment to the cleanup of the site and to the build-out of a signature, much-needed affordable housing development is the last piece to ensure success, and which is why we are before you. We're also fortunate to have the involvement of some great community leaders, serving as our partners in this development with us. Specifically, the Haitian Neighborhood Center, St. Law, is a partner on this development, as well as Haslam Housing Ventures, which is managed by Udonis Haslam. We're excited to name this community after Catherine Fawn, a Haitian seamstress, patriot, and national heroine, who is widely regarded as one of the symbols of the Haitian Revolution and independence. Prior to being selected, and certainly since that time, we have been engaged in understanding the market and the needs of the community. The clear need that stands out in North Miami is the need for new, high-quality, affordable housing. As you can see, the housing stock in the city of North Miami is old. Over 92% of housing units in the city of North Miami were constructed prior to 1990. 67% of the renters in the city of North Miami are cost-burdened or severely cost-burdened. Here is the site. The site is known as Rux Park, and it's located at the northwest corner of Northeast 137th Street and Northeast 5th Avenue. As I mentioned, we were selected by the City of North Miami for this redevelopment project, including remediation of the main site. As you can see, the site is not on a major road, and it is tucked back in a neighborhood with single-family homes on 3 sides. Here's a site assessment summary. We have a 436-page report that has dug into the issues, but suffice it to say that the site is an environmental hazard. Due to years of pollution, it has groundwater and soil contamination, including arsenic, ammonia, and coliform. It makes the site particularly challenging to develop, but we are committed to starting the cleanup immediately upon approval of the necessary financing by the North Miami CRA. Here is the zoning map. The purple PD is the site. PD3 is a unique zoning designation used for this particular site in the city. It allows for a higher density than what we're proposing, because we think a more modest scale is in line with the neighborhood. Here's the working site plan of Catherine Fawn Estates. Please note that this is conceptual in nature only. It is intended simply to provide an illustration of the major massing components of the site. It is not intended to be a final product. We will work closely with the administration and community on the final design, and will take into account additional planning preferences. Over the last few years, we have engaged in numerous conversations with leadership here in the city of North Miami. We have met with elected officials, with staff, with community leaders, and stakeholders. These conversations have shaped our proposal. What we are proposing to you today is a complete community, a mixed-use development with residential and commercial components, a mixed-income development serving residents at 60% area median income, referred to as affordable housing, and residents at 120% AMI, referred to as workforce housing. And uniquely, this community will serve renters and provide home ownership in a realistic and achievable manner. Specifically, we are proposing to clean up the site, create 174 units of rental affordable housing, a 10,000 square foot commercial building, and 26 units of home ownership. The total direct project cost is $70.2 million. In order to achieve this, we need your partnership in the form of a North Miami CRA contribution as follows: $2 million for site cleanup, $13,050,000 for the build-out of the 174 units of affordable housing, and $1,950,000 for the build-out of the 26 units of homeownership. The community benefits you will create with your support of this project are immense. You will eliminate blight, a stated purpose of the North Miami CRA. You will clean up an environmentally contaminated site, something sorely needing to be done for decades, as Rasha had mentioned. You will create affordable housing, the #1 need of this community. You will create home ownership opportunities, creating upward mobility and a stable community. You will create commercial and retail activity. You will create over 1,700 temporary, permanent, and induced jobs. That represents opportunity for 1,700 local families. You will create over $130 million in direct economic activity. You will create earnings and income for the local community in the amount of over $50 million. You will create impact fees and building permit payments for local governments in the amount of $2.5 million. In short, Your support here today will make a significant impact for thousands of residents of the city of North Miami for generations to come. Now is the time. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's true for this redevelopment opportunity. Housing affordability continues to become more and more inaccessible. Construction costs are increasing. We may only have one shot at the 4% low-income housing tax credits, as the opportunity is not guaranteed past 2022. That's a really important point. If I may stop there and just kind of emphasize that. There's a good chance that the financing is going to disappear after 2022. And so, decades of inaction, there's a cause for that generally. It's hard to develop. It's just a hard site to develop. And so we currently have this opportunity. I think if we miss it, it would be a big mistake. We are ready to begin work today. Your support will allow us to do that. We will engage in an interactive process working with committed community partners like the CRA and the city in a thoughtful dialogue to create the best possible and viable development. And we will engage directly to create housing which relates to and is part of the fabric of the neighborhood and the community. We intend to work closely with the North Miami CRA on these types of positive planning opportunities to achieve the best possible outcome. We are committed to creating housing of which we and you can be justly proud. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I don't remember if you mentioned there's a timeline attached, and so once the board approves it, the first phase is cleaning up the contaminated site, which is about 12 months and change. Parallel to that, they will be working on their plans, site plan approval, and so on and so forth. Phase 1, which is the 174 apartments and the 10,000 square feet commercial building, would be done, if all goes well, December 2024. And the phase 2 for the condos, those are on CRA-owned properties, and right now there's a temporary fire station on there that they're supposed to be vacating soon. They found a new home. So once they leave, then Mr. Imdar we would give them possession, whether you didn't mention that, we're giving you 3 lots too, to build the homeownership units, the 26 units. So that comes after. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations on the presentation, very well done. But I have a question. You're getting funding from the state, you're getting funding from a lot of sources. Putting the horse in front of the carriage, why couldn't the funding for the cleaning was a priority? How come you need it from the CRA and not the state or someone else with a higher interest in cleaning up the city, not from the state? Why the CRA? Why that item for cleanup, $2 million? That's one question. The other question I have is regarding the mixed use. It's in the center, it's in the middle of a very, very, seems to be a community of houses, and it's not very populated by a lot of traffic. How are you going to generate the need for vendors to come in, and how are you going to secure those vendors, especially with retail failing after COVID, and the city is having a lot of trouble securing, 5-10-year commitments from vendors to open restaurants and open stores, and especially in that very secluded area of the city.
Yeah, great questions, both of them. So the first one is simple. There's not a specific program for the state to apply for to clean up the site on the front end, and so there's no source outside of the CRA that's for cleanup, for environmental cleanup.
And it wasn't an item that you couldn't do yourself as far as the developer?
We certainly could, but part of the total package that we have presented to the city and now to the CRA was that the dollars that they would provide would be used for the cleanup. It kind of evolved that way after a couple years of conversation, but and then to answer your second question. We share the same concerns. The commercial building is not, it wouldn't be our preference, if you may. However, the zoning of the site, the P3 zoning, requires that we develop the site with 3 different uses, and there's a list of those uses. And so that's how we ended up with the commercial building. The size of the commercial building, we've gone back and forth with the city on how much square footage we need to deliver. Our preference was to deliver a smaller footprint, 5,000, 7,500. The city insisted that the building be 10,000 square feet. We're committed to working with the CRA to identify suitable tenants. It's not, as you point out, it's not on a main road, or it's not. It doesn't have visibility. So the ultimate tenant will need to be a destination type tenant. So, for example, a clinic would be a great use for that site. A dentist, offices. We had early on. We had conversations with the city about a community center. Or community space, so the city could program it however they want for events or that kind of thing, and that's all still on the table. We're going to dive into that a little deeper as the project moves forward and the site plan gets finalized a little bit.
Disclaimer.
Good evening. Thank you for that presentation, and I must acknowledge your efforts for actually bringing not just rentals, but opportunities for people to be homeowners. So with that said, I want to dissect a little bit into what the 174 apartments are going to look like. First, I wanted to know, were there any possibilities for you to increase the home ownership beyond 26 units, or is it because of the location where it's going to be, it can only house 26 units?
No, so really great question. There's diverging opinions of this, right? There's certainly folks who feel like more home ownership would be great. The problem is we want to be able to deliver what we commit to. That's really important to us. So we're not in the business of smoke and mirrors, and we're not in the business of making promises that we can't fulfill. So in this particular case, there's the issue is construction financing. There's no construction financing for workforce housing condominiums. All right, so let me back that up a little bit. So if we were doing a townhouse project, we could probably find construction financing. The problem with the site is about a third of it is an easement, a water and sewer easement, and it runs right through the middle of the site. So about a third of the site is undevelopable, if you will.
Okay.
And so if you look at it as a townhouse development, you could probably fit about 70 to 80 townhouses on that site, right? So that's one option. But if you want to build more density, if you want to try to get up to 200 units, then you have to do condominiums. You have to do apartments and condominiums, and there's no construction financing for workforce housing condominiums. So recognizing this, Miami-Dade County has created a program, and so their program is to allow developers to apply through an RFP process and secure construction loan financing for mid-level condominium projects. The problem is they only fund the program with $20 million annually, And it's their position that they want to split those funds up to at least 2 or 3 different projects, right?
Okay.
So when you start doing the math, that's the answer. We anticipate only being able to secure maybe $8 to $10 million from the county, and that's going to be the construction financing for the project. So we don't want to overcommit on the number. We think that we can deliver the 26 units. We think that that's a realistic target, and anything above that really is going to jeopardize that phase of the project.
Thank you. Second question, so you're looking at 26 condo apartments.
No, condos. Well, 2 and 3 bedroom condos.
Okay, and will the 26 units, I was looking at the plan, where are the renters going to be as opposed to where the owners are going to be? Or is it going to be mixed?
So the apartments, the 174 units in the commercial is going to be on the city-owned lot, big lot. Like I said, the CRA had 3 little lots where the temporary fire station is.
Okay.
So it's still in that lot, but it's on the other side of the street, and that's where they would build those.
Yes.
So there'll be somewhat of a buffer with
Between
the
them.
parking and
Yes.
the
Okay.
garden.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and because the financing is different, they'll be platted separately. They'll have different financing and all that. Essentially 2 different projects.
Excellent. And then I noticed that it says elderly units and then family. So out of the 174, there's going to be some units specifically for 55 and over?
So I apologize. I don't know where that is in the program, but we haven't had that discussion now. I'm certainly open to that. So if that is a priority of the cities, we can certainly discuss that. I do know that talking to a couple of the elected officials, because some of the developments that we do are elderly developments, and from a property management standpoint, we actually love
And this
seniors.
is just a suggestion because as a small business owner here in the city, I know that there is a huge concern for rentals, specifically for the elderly. So, I don't know if this was a part of another project where what I'm looking at, but it specifically says elderly. So I think that if there's possibility that there can be a mix, but with the 174, that there is a portion of them that can specifically be for 55 and over, I think that would bring a lot of value to this project and to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. A number of the projects, we're working on a project in Fort Lauderdale right now, and 20% of those units are set aside for seniors. And so,
Okay, great.
we'd be happy to do something similar here.
And then my last question, as a mom, when you're putting 174 units, you think that people are going to come with children. I don't see a park. It does not necessarily a park, but like maybe a recreation area.
We'll have a
ball.
playground. There will be there'll be a children's playground.
Okay.
The final amenity package will be worked out during the site plan approval process.
Okay.
But we certainly intend to have all that
So
stuff. Yeah.
let me
Excellent.
just say it on the record. Amenities include modern and attractive on-site amenities available to residents, including open-air decks and barbecue grills, a community room, a gym, a library with a computer room, and children's playground.
Excellent. Where are you reading that?
In my cover memo to the packet behind the resolution, that's where I summarized what it is that they're asking for and the pertinent things. So those are the things that they had.
Okay.
And 260 parking spaces and 40 bike parking.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
No, thank you for your time.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Charles?
Hey, good evening. I do want to say thank you for your presentation. I wanted to know, does the CRA have any option of equity in this project?
Not of equity, but we certainly look at the CRA as a partner, and we'll rely on their input, throughout the process.
So our revenue, our funds come from tax increment revenue. So the project, when it's built, right now it's $0 and a negative eyesore to the community. So our investment in that will create the positive, one, removing slum and blight in that area, but also future taxes that we'll be able to use to pay for other projects. So that's how we make it work. The number has not finalized yet because it's affordable housing. There's a discount on the property taxes for affordable housing, but once it's done, we'll be receiving some revenue as opposed to the zero that we're receiving right now.
Yeah,
Mr. Charles?
Any more?
Sir, I want to say thank you for such a great presentation, and I think you have a lot to offer with that project.
Thank
and
you.
I want to say thank you for bringing it up in here. I have a question, just need some clarification on that one, artist apartments. Can you, because I'm kind of...
In terms of the breakdown, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, or?
No, the artist
I see there's a
apartments.
point in here, artist apartment.
Yeah.
And
So,
we have 8 units that would be put on the side. So that I really don't get it.
sure. The idea stemmed from we actually we're doing a project in Wynwood, and so there's a lot of artist commitments in that project, and we found the artist community to be one desperately in need of housing, several folks, but also really great tenants, and so we wanted to bring that creativity to our project, and so we committed to working with the CRA and the North Miami arts community, which will work with the CRA on identifying. But
So one of the things, Mr. Charles, because of MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, and our Arts and Public Places program, we do have artists that live in the city and so on and so forth. And they are not the most well-paid artists in the world, but, their work is valuable. And it has been, brought to our attention, even Mr. Patterson here, who has brought it to our attention a few years back, that there is a shortage of appropriate, like earmarking housing for artists so that they could be also part of the affordable housing project, because their investment into the community is very valuable. It helps with, what the community, MoCA, our arts and public places. I mean, if you've been to Griffin Park, you see what the artist has done.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they don't get paid only if they become like a, well-known artist and they're multimillionaires and so on and so forth. So they rely on commission, and so they qualify under the affordable housing guidelines. They're just not given that opportunity most of the time to have access to these apartments. So that's why we asked for a small portion to be part of it.
Got it. Thank you very much.
I just have one question. Looking at the pro forma, I see the 43, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. I guess the starting rents will be $953. And then the 2 bedroom, 1 bath starting for the 104 units, rent's going to start at $1,142. And then for the 27, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, you're at rents at $1,315.
yes, sir.
And then year over year, it increases. I don't have a calculator, but is it? I'm assuming it looks like 2%.
Yes, that's the factor that we have in there. Now, to be clear, these rents are based on area median income.
Yep.
So they're recalculated every year and published by HUD every year. And so around April of every year, they're published, and so that's how they work. So they can go up, they can go down, and they're tied to, in this case, 60% area median income. So that they determine what 60% area median income is, and then adjust the rents based on that annually.
And then historically, in your opinion, have you seen the numbers go up year over year, or
Really good question. So over the last 15 years, they've been pretty stagnant. There have been a number of years. We had a 7 or 8 year period where rents didn't go up at all. And so rents, the 2021 rents are actually lower than the 2020 rents. Now, according to the Miami Herald and a lot of local publications, rents have skyrocketed over the last 12 months. So that might get factored into the rents. There's about a 3-year delay on the factoring, but that's how it works. And so as a developer, we don't really anticipate significant increases in rents. The project has to balance out that first year, and we take it from there.
And then just based on the performance numbers, the 2% increase, is that inflation or is that just year-over-year cost increase?
Yeah. It's just a multiplier that's used to account for inflation and increases in cost. Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just the last question. I didn't see the pricing, maybe I missed it, for the condos.
The condos are going to be sold between $300,000 and $320,000.
Thank you.
Was this site the old sewer plant? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
An old nursery plant.
Has a lot of
Any other questions? Thank you for an outstanding presentation. Thank you, Raj.
I appreciate it. Thank
Do
you
I
so
have
much.
a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now we are on agenda
Chairman
item
McDermott.
number 5 as Mr. McDermott's chair comes back. Asha, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Okay. Residences at Nomi. Residences at Nomi was awarded an infrastructure grant of $5.8 million and a tax rebate of 50% of their future tax increment at the April 13th board meeting. The applicant made several commitments, including but not limited to construction starting by September, October 2021. However, during negotiations of the grant and the TIF rebate agreements, the applicant requested an extension to obtain their building permit and informed us that they might have to bring a new equity investor to the project. Thereafter, the CRA attorney and myself, we met with the new equity investor that they wanted to bring in, and it was, we were informed that they intended to buy the property. So that became an issue for us. And also the intent for the purchaser was to convert it to 100% affordable housing, which is also contrary to what the original application was for. It was supposed to be 175 units for 55 and over with 15% affordable, and the rest would be mixed income, including market rate. We have, been in discussion with the attorney for the applicant. We had brought the item at the October meeting to recommend the board rescind the award. However, the mayor had received a last-minute request to defer the item till November to give them the adequate time for them to provide the paperwork that we needed to show that they were getting the financing. Subsequent to that, they did provide us with documentations and so on. However, there were some issues as it related to the financing and the terms because they were contrary to the CRA terms. For instance, on the lender's packet, it said that they were all going to be market rate, and they needed to remove the restriction of the age, which is not an issue for us more than for them, and also any covenants are from the government and so on. Two things. One, again, this grant is contingent on a 15% of affordable units in there. And two, when we provide these grants, we put liens on the property and we, monitor it to make sure the project is being done as it should. We share that with, this is the applicant's attorney, Mr. Stephen Wernick, and so on. So at the Friday evening, Mr. Wernick sent us additional documentation correcting some of the items. At this point, again, we had already posted this item. Mr. Zelkowitz, the attorney, can speak at length if he wants. At this point, for myself, I don't have enough time to adequately review the documentations that they provided. Also, there are other steps of what they need to get done. So essentially, the loan that they're applying for is contingent on getting a HUD loan, and that is a 12-month process. So essentially, they're asking the board to approve, giving them an extension to May 2023 for their permitting, because they have to go through the application process to get the HUD. But they have to remove the age restriction on the covenant, which means now they have to go back to the city, go back to the planning commission, and so on and so forth, and go through that process. For myself, I am more comfortable with the board agreeing to resend this item, and when the applicant is ready and they've done what they need to get done to be able to prove us the financing and the application is done, they can come back and apply. The challenge is we cannot manage, like at this point, I would have to monitor all the steps and so on and so forth. And another challenge, if I'm not mistaken, is right now the property is set for 55 and over. There were parking credits provided, because if it's a senior project, there are certain parking credits that are provided. If you're removing the age restriction, now when you go back to the city, you have to go back and recalculate your parking. So to me, it's not an easy fix. However, for us, in terms of financing an award, it's a problem for staff to have to manage such a project when they're not ready at this point. And personally, the premise that they were going to bring an equity investor and come to find out that they were in the process of acquiring the property, for me, was a problem. So that is my professional opinion. And I don't know if the attorney wants to say anything, but Mr. Wernick is here representing his client, Mr. Moyagubi, for this item.
Before Mr. Warnick speaks, I want to follow up on some things that the executive director said. So first of all, we don't have any signed agreement yet. So back in April, they were approved by the board for the infrastructure grant and the TIF rebate incentive. We provided our standard agreements. We received a number of comments, and then I felt we're being pushed into finalizing, signing these prematurely. And that's when we were advised that there was this equity investor who we then met on a Zoom call, who turned out to be an actual buyer. So, I mean, Rasha kind of said it, but I'm going to say it. At that point, there was a credibility issue. Okay, and I'm not saying that they're not going to do the project. I'm not saying that they're not at some point complete the project. We've been provided documents. One of them is an engagement letter with a funding company, not signed. So what they're asking us to do is basically to give them another year, sort of get everything done, and then they'll be ready to move forward. From our perspective, having an agreement, my concern legally is, you know I can draft on it. We can put all sorts of fail-safe, milestone dates, say, okay, if you don't do X by date Y, this thing terminates automatically. Okay, to protect the CRA. My concern, and I've been in the position, is when you have these kind of things, we could get into litigation. All right, they may say, no, we gave you that, or no, it was fine, and you guys are acting, arbitrarily. I mean, I, as like the executive director, would rather that we continue to work with the applicant. When they're ready, they can resubmit with the project they have. The project that is for us now is not the project that was approved. The project that we approved was a different project from our perspective. So that's where we are. And I would counsel you, to allow us to continue to work, but I can't counsel you to go forward in agreements at this point when so much, from our perspective, that is either unknown or incomplete or has been changed and it's going to require another year's worth of work and basically administration by the CRA staff to make sure things are getting done and getting done the way we want. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Executive Director, who's over Wernick, here to make a presentation on behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Rasha and Steve. I think there is a lot of background to this, and it actually goes back further. Some of you may know I was not involved when the project went through the conditional use permit process, but we're talking about residences at Nomi, which is a couple blocks to the east. It's, it's a vacant parking lot that's been talked about for redevelopment for a while. The approvals are from 2019. The project was originally going to have more of a rehabilitation component. The project changed through that process. It took a long time to go through the entitlement. I think one of the things looking back, had I been involved, we probably would have started that CRA application in 2019, because as you saw in the project before, that project doesn't have site plan approval, doesn't have a building permit. In fact, the schedule that we're proposing with, really what we're asking for is an extension of time, because we've now identified a lending source that's a HUD loan, which actually will have a shorter construction time frame because it has better loan to value, 85%. So that's going to help with the construction finance. The proposed permitting date with this additional time is May of 2023, which is about 18 months from now and about 2 years from the approval. Most of the agreements for the projects that have not gone through the entitlement process yet have that sort of time, about 12 months for site plan approval, 24 months for building. So it really puts the project, it's a delay and it's unfortunate because I think our client has gone through some challenges and they've gotten to a point where they've finally found their financing source. But in terms of the total construction time frame, it's not as much of a delay as it would seem because they do have approvals for the project. There's a covenant in place which includes several commitments that will stay other than they are asking for, because with this financing you cannot discriminate on age. This is like the HUD 224 loan program, and the lender is requiring that the age restriction be removed. It doesn't mean folks that are 55 plus can't live there, but it's opening it up to all ages. And I think in the downtown location, it may end up being a silver lining that as downtown starts to revitalize, this project is open to more age groups, and that can generate more traffic for the retail that's occurring on 124th Street. So I think we're all in agreement that we would have liked to see the project move into getting the building permit this year. It didn't happen that way. They lost the financing that was out there, and in part it was because, and this kind of came up in the last item, the certain loans are there for certain kinds of programs. You've got 100% affordable, you've got market rate. When you're getting into mixed income projects, it becomes a little bit more challenging, especially in areas that don't have precedent on projects. This probably will be the first mixed use multifamily residential in this area to be constructed in quite some time. So I think that's a factor that's gone into it. But where we are today, and I actually brought copies of, we had a very tight time frame in the last few weeks to get documents together. We were able to get some information, but not all of it. I did bring with me tonight, and I can submit, I have copies of this. There's a letter from October 25th, which is from Greystone, the funding provider, and also an updated development budget with sources and uses. There's a little bit dense, but I'll distribute them if you all want to take a look at them. This came in last week. So again, we completely understand where staff is coming from. They have been phenomenal throughout this process. And there was a point this summer where there was a potential buyer that was looking at, they were going to acquire it if they thought this could be a 100% affordable project. That didn't end up happening. They walked away. And so over the last couple months, the same ownership that was here as the applicant, NM124 LLC, which is my client, They've owned the property now, I think it's like 5 or 6 years. They have experience, significant experience developing affordable housing in New York. With their partners have experienced multifamily down here in Miami. But I think they've found this site more challenging than they originally anticipated. But with the financing that they've been working on, this would actually, it would keep the commitment from the CRA the same. We're not asking for any additional dollars. The number of units in the project are staying the same at 175 units. There's still a 15% affordable commitment. That's 27 units within the project, which is the same as the original application. There's approximately 9,000 square feet of ground floor retail and 11,000 square feet of supportive office space, which is, fairly small for the overall project. It's primarily multifamily. But the project also has infrastructure improvements, including pedestrian promenade, bicycle rack improvements, and all those are memorialized through the site plan approval and the covenant. So we're not seeking to modify any of that. We're really just looking for additional time to secure the financing, and we will have to go back and seek to amend the covenant to remove the age restriction and open it up to all ages. But otherwise, the only other thing that Rasha mentioned is there may need to be some additional parking provided. But otherwise, there's no intention to change the development program. And the idea with the construction time frame that I think this is in your backup, we're looking at 6 months, basically May of 2022, to secure any additional entitlements, provisions to the site plan, and address the covenant, and then 12 months for the building permit. But the loan itself in that letter calls for a 20-month construction time frame, which is shorter than the original proposal. And so the delivery date is being estimated at January 2025, which is, again, it's about 20 months from the estimated date of receiving a building. And so this type of loan has a lot of steps involved. That's some of the information that we had provided in the last couple of weeks. So there's not much we can do about that, but we are committed to maintaining the affordability. We're committed to doing the project and working with the city in whatever way we need to. And whatever the CRA needs to do or feels is important to keep our feet to the fire, monitor the progress. I don't think it's that different than the other agreements. We need to hit certain target dates. And if we don't, the mechanisms are in the agreement that it could be rescinded, or, we could, if we don't meet our criteria, those things are there to protect the CRA for its investment.
Mr. Zelkowitz?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So to be clear, your recommendation would be, what you're looking for from us is authorization to continue to work with them as they go through all of these ifs, and at some point in time, reestablish an agreement, but not to simply extend something that's already in place. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think what Executive Director and I are recommending is that the grant and the TIF incentive award be rescinded, and that we will, of course, continue to work with the developer, and that if and when they get to the point where they're ready to move forward, that we would then come back to you all, and they would be reapplying for that same or different grant and TIF rebate at that point in time. For us, there's too much unknown at this point in time to continue with the award, and because we don't have any signed agreements. I mean, what you're asking us to do in your scenario would be somehow go forward and sign the agreement.
Okay.
Is that
there
correct,
any
Madam
other
Executive Director?
Questions for staff?
Rasha, I'm assuming that the grant funds are earmarked for this project?
Yes, it is, but it would free up for other applicants as well.
That was my
in
next
terms
question.
of cash flow and so on and so forth. But I mean, again, they're like the attorney said, the unknowns, he has to go back to the city, remove the covenant, go to the Planning Commission, remove the age restriction, deal with the parking requirement now, because if I'm not mistaken, now that there are no age restriction, you have a certain number of parking you're supposed to have, even for guests and so on and so forth. So I don't even know how that's gonna like play out in terms of the plan, the design. You know, there's so many unknowns at this point. We're willing to work with them, but I just don't feel comfortable us moving forward and signing a grant agreement with them at the time.
Right.
I understand what Mr. Wernick says, but in terms of monitoring and managing this grant is 200% different from the other projects or applications that we've done. Actually, 1155 Nomi, they got their site plan approved last week, which is before their 1 year. We do have benchmarks, but at this point, you know, I think the project's great. There are too many unknowns. And I cannot, in all honesty, like I said, the new documentation that we got that he's sharing with you was sent Friday evening. I mean, I work a lot, but not Friday evening, which means we're in Monday today, and for me to have time to properly review and give you a professional opinion, I can't do that. So, and those are the challenges.
And I'd like to add to that. I mean, we provided multiple opportunities to provide information, multiple deadlines, and we just kept pushing them back and pushing them back, obviously in an effort to work with the applicant. Like Rasha said, we ended up getting this information that was handed out to you all Friday night.
It was Thursday.
Or,
It was that
excuse me,
night. It was.
Thursday night.
It was Thursday.
Oh, yeah, I apologize. Thursday night.
Yeah, Rasha, so potentially, just to be clear, this would free up funds to be utilized for other developments and other opportunities for
Yes,
the
sir.
city. Will there be an opportunity for them to come back?
Oh, yes, yes.
And get the same amount of funds depending on the
Yes,
project?
yes.
I have a question. How long was the process, the application process?
It was about 6 months
So that
from the
means
time
that,
we submitted till the time we got to CRA board, or it was in April.
so that means that if we would agree today, then that means if they're willing to come back, they're going to have to go through the 6 months process all over again.
No, you know, that was their original application.
Mhm.
Correct. So there was a lot of, anybody who submits an application for infrastructure grant or TIF at the beginning, it takes a while to go through the process, negotiating the amounts and so on and so forth. We've already pretty much done that. The issue now is they have to go back to the city and remove the age restriction covenant and deal with their parking.
And just to be clear, the covenant has a number of things in it that are tied to the site plan. I think it would only be one section of the covenant,
But it's
a
an age,
modification.
you got to remove the age restriction.
That's correct.
And then that triggers, you got to deal with your parking, pretty much.
Yes, there could be some adjustment.
So then my next question to you, exactly what prohibited you from meeting the deadlines that the executive director and I'm assuming the attorney put before you?
You mean in the last couple of weeks?
No.
Last
Or
month.
further, like,
I mean,
Since
it
April?
seems
6
as
months,
if, you know,
yes.
we're coming
Since
in at the tail end
Yeah.
of something that has been happening for a very
yeah,
long
it's been
time.
evolving.
So my question is, I understand that you're representing someone, but do you know exactly what took place?
Generally, yes. Yes, I've been involved. I haven't been involved in direct conversations with lenders and other things, but I've been getting updates and being in touch with our client.
Mhm.
I think to summarize, the loan that was presented in April and what was approved
Mhm.
was, like I said, based on a 70% loan to value,
Mhm.
which had a pretty sizable equity contribution from the private side, and the amount of debt, I think, was around 28 million. That loan ended up not even coming through, and it wasn't very favorable term. I think it was, so they were realizing as they went through their financing that whether it's the market changing, COVID, other factors, the project, and some of that came from, you know, conditional use permit and different input from stakeholders. The way the project landed was everyone loved the project, this mixed use, but it became hard to finance. And
Okay.
so what they had told me was there were two directions it could go. It could become an affordable housing project that had some state money, and that was where this potential buyer was interested, and maybe that would have been, you know, a possibility because there's financing available for those kinds of projects. But I don't think anyone thought that was the best project for the site, and they ended up not going through with it. The other option that they found is a HUD loan that I can read it. It's 221D4. It's called a Multifamily Accelerated Processing Program through FHA, and this has an 85-15 loan to value, but it's a program that doesn't contemplate restriction on age, and there's certain steps that are required with it. I don't know all of that,
Okay.
but I know that they talk about it as a 12-month application process, and that came to fruition probably the end of September, early October, and at the same time that we were coming up, I guess, on kind of 6 months since the approval, and so we were getting emails. What's the status? They've sent multiple emails. So I think just the timing was one that it would have been great had they identified that source a couple months earlier. Maybe we would have been able to, get the right information in place that we weren't here. But understandably, budget season comes up. There's only so long they want to kind of be in limbo, right?
Okay,
The CRA needs some certainty, so I understand.
Thank you. And my next and final question for you, and then I have a few questions for the executive director. What's the reasoning behind changing it from a elderly rental property to now for everyone?
So I think it's driven by the financing. Like, they did say to me, if we go to a 62-plus senior housing program, there might be programs for that.
And that's
terms of
very much
financing.
needed.
It is, but in this location, I think we've heard different viewpoints on whether it should be.
When you say this location, you mean North
Downtown.
Miami?
No,
The nine-
downtown.
Yeah, like 2 blocks from here, the development site.
Mr. Wernick, let me just add.
Sure,
So it was
sorry.
before your time. When they went through the site plan approval process, it took a long time because originally, like you said, they were envisioning an ALF, they were envisioning an older population. The community, the residents around it were not for it.
Meaning the residents of
the
North Miami?
Downtown. We're talking about the downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they made some changes and so on, and I know that it became 55. They removed the ALF component and so on and so forth. So I understand the age restriction issue. I don't have any issues with that at all. It's part of the funding. HUD says you can't have an age restriction if you're using our money. I understand that. But if they were to do it 62 or anything else other than that, they would have challenges with the residents.
Got it. Okay, and Executive Director, from the time that they started this application till now, it's been how long?
I think it was less than
It's been less
because
than
because it was during COVID. I mean,
So,
we had the meeting via Zoom.
okay. So from the time that they presented it to the time that, till today, it's less than a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, one final question, Rasha. So, if, I know the request before us is to rescind the infrastructure grant and TIF rebate. If we do that, if we pass that, they still will be eligible to come back
Yes,
when
they
they
can come
are
back and
ready.
apply when they're ready. I mean,
But they have to
just
go
looking
through
at
whole
the
process
loan paperwork
again.
that they submitted, I know cost of construction has gone up.
Mhm.
I know there are a lot of other variables.
But we can use the money in between for new projects.
That is the issue, because
Okay.
once you
Do we
commit
have any new
toward-
projects?
Well, we have a waiting list of applications, but the point is, once the board approves a project, I am required to hold the money. And that's one of the challenges that we have because we do have a greater need out there for other projects and other opportunities. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to fund residents that know me when they're ready. I just feel that we would be more comfortable when they've gotten, the city issues resolved and they're halfway through, let's say, the HUD application process, and they have more certainty to say, yes, this is happening, we're walking out the door, and this would free up, our financial, obligations to them, and we can fund other projects.
Okay,
If
do
I-
I hear
I just had one question for the applicant.
oh, sure.
Is any of your funding contingent on this, your funding or any of the equity putting?
The HUD loan and the paperwork that I just distributed contemplates the 5.8 million infrastructure grant component. It does not factor in the TIF recapture, which is a bit smaller over time. But yes, it is part of the sources.
But
In the
since we
law.
don't, and this is for legal, since we don't have a actual agreement, they can still project that funds when they're prepared, because we technically haven't really agreed to pay it, I'm assuming? Because there's no signed agreement, that's what I heard earlier.
Yeah, we
Correct.
haven't
There's
signed
no
it.
signed agreements. I'd also like to ask Mr. Warren, isn't my understanding from the engagement letter with Greystone is that HUD still has to approve and accept whatever financing there may be from the CRA, and that our financing would have to be subordinated to the HUD financing, correct? On
Correct.
both?
Correct. So I think from our perspective, I don't want to say for sure because I haven't had direct conversations with the lender. I think it would make it more challenging for us to move forward with the current loan. I don't know that if it would be impossible, but it's certainly been part of the documentation and the conversation. And they probably would have to go back to the table to see how that's going to change the number. I don't know what the outcome of that.
But from what I'm hearing, we're not taking, you can still project the funds, it's just we're not releasing them to you now because you're not quite prepared for it. You can still come back.
Well, I think what you're saying is different than what Mr. Zelkowitz was suggesting. We would have to come back and reapply, go through the process, and then see what the proposed amount is. It might be different.
Correct, but as far as considering the CRA's grant, that's a factor in HUD sizing the loan that they make. That's all it is. It doesn't mean that they're not going to give the loan. It just means that the loan may be bigger, not bigger, maybe smaller, and there has to maybe be more of an equity contribution by the developer.
Until such time as the funding is secured.
All right, we have a request on this item to rescind the residents of NOMI infrastructure grant and TIF rebate. Do I have a motion? Have a motion? Second? Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. No, we have. Okay, you want to do there was a request for a voice vote?
Mr. McDermott, how do you vote?
Yes?
Mr. Clark, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Alfaro, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Blamure, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Each, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kobo, how do you vote? Mr. Charles, how do you vote?
Yes.
7-1.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, we move on to our final
Final
item.
item, yes, yes. Okay. All right. Riva Development was selected to build a 5-unit elderly project on land donated by the city with multi-party funding, including the North Miami CRA. Total cost of the project was $1.1 million with the following funding breakdown. The city of North Miami providing a cash funding of $188,299. $115,000 out of that was HUD funding. $73,000 out of that is TD Bank plus the land conveyance. The CRAs provided $486,250 to include an elevator, which was estimated at $100,000, and the developer got a construction loan for $490,000. All parties agreed to a breakdown disbursement, which is attached to your packet. To date, the CRA has disbursed $94,065 for architectural fees and a portion of the developer fee. There have been numerous delays with the project, namely, COVID and some other design issues. Based on the updated memo that is attached here, Riva Development is requesting an additional funding grant from the CRA. They're asking for an additional $386,359 to cover increased in construction costs, which would result in a total CRA investment of $872,609. The developer for Riva Development, Ms. Linda Harris and Mr. Don Patterson, are here to provide you with an update. One of the items that they needed to get done in order for us to consider them is the HUD funding that the city had provided had a deadline. They were able to get an extension through March 2022, correct? They have to build the project. Again, it's a 2-story, 5-unit elderly property in District 2. It's a city-owned property. Well, not anymore because the city conveyed it to them. So if the committee were to choose to fund the additional construction costs of $386,359, staff is recommending that it is obviously for the construction costs that they presented that they need. Riva Development must spend their portion of the construction loan, which is estimated at $408,515 prior to requesting the release of the increased funding. And most definitely, they would need to get the project done by the HUD deadline so that the city can release their funds and we wouldn't have any additional issues. Like I said, Ms. Linda Harris and Mr. Don Patterson are here. You have in your packet their updated information that they provided on the accomplishments that they did so far. They did get their building permit. They did pay their impact fees. They've obtained bids from qualified contractors, and so I guess now they're working on contracting with the lowest bidder, and they did get their HUD extension.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? I'm Linda Harris. I am the Senior Project Manager at Riva Development. I'm here with the President and Founder, Don Patterson. This is a 5-unit affordable dwelling. It's a small project, but it's for residents 55 and over. It's located at 1046 Northeast 128th Street. And as the Executive Director mentioned, we have obtained our permits from Miami-Dade County, which is no small feat. We so believed in the project that while we were waiting and going through it in COVID, that we spent a little south of $20,000 of our own money because we didn't want to delay this. But for a final permit fee, impact fee to the city of North Miami of $5,000, we are all signed off with North Miami Building Department. We have obtained the extension, as Madam Executive Director said, from HUD. We have obtained a new agreement from the city of North Miami for those HUD dollars. We've met with the new councilwoman of the district, Ms. Cassandra Timothy, who is in support of this project. She's very excited. It's in her district. And again, we've spent about $20,000 of our own money. We believe this project is it's an excellent and it's well needed. It's good quality of life projects. We also, part of that an increase in construction costs was because we must now put in a new fire hydrant, which will benefit the city of North Miami. We just happen to be the first one to build a new building. It's been so long, as the gentleman mentioned earlier, a lot of the structures are older in North Miami, so tag we're it. So that's an extra $45,000, but it will benefit the neighborhood and the citizens of North Miami. So we're asking for the increase in funds. I'm sure you all have heard of the supply chain line and the cost, but ladies and gentlemen, we are permit ready, shovel ready, and ready to go. Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, any questions from the board?
What's the address again?
1046 Northeast 128th Street.
Now,
That's
is there,
128.
yeah, is there there's an existing building there, or?
No, sir, it's an empty
It's
lot.
a lot now?
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to, okay. And you're going to build, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for clearing the cobwebs.
I have a question. You said that it's 5 units.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would the 5 units need an elevator?
That was the CRA board's decision. The original design did not have an elevator. It was a walk-up. But the CRA board, the mayor and council, deemed it appropriate, since it's seniors, to have an elevator. And that's why they asked the CRA to add an additional $100,000 into the mix.
Okay, so, obviously, it's something that you guys already went over. The 5 units, what does it look like? What's the plan?
There are,
We
I'm
can-
sorry, Marcia.
Yeah, we can share with you the design and so on, because this is a project that we've approved over a year ago. So we did not bring the designs because they went through the whole review, so I can email it to the committee members so you can see what it is. But it is exactly 5 units with an elevator. It's for 55 and over, and it's affordable.
Correct.
I think at one point, it almost was for artists too, correct?
It is, yes, it is for
So,
artists. We've talked to NOMI,
yeah.
the museums, yeah.
So,
And the total cost of this project is 1.1?
it will now be 1.5, well, 1.48 with the additional 386,000 that she's asking.
I'm sorry, what was the addition?
It'll be 1.48 because she's asking for the additional 386,000, but originally it was 1.1.
And it's going to be rental.
That is correct, affordable rental.
And they will be managing the rental and so on.
For seniors.
For seniors, yes.
The age requirement?
55 and over?
55.
Ms. Alfaro? Mr. Chair,
5'5".
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. McDermott.
Yes.
Ms. Alfaro has a question.
You're breaking
sorry.
ground on this project. What's the completion?
Obviously, we are ready to go and shovel ready, so March of 2022.
22. It has to be done by
And
March
that's
of
why
2022.
it's a little time sensitive as well.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And what will the rental rates be?
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the one bedrooms.
Good evening, Advisory Board. My name is Don Patterson, CEO. The rents will vary depending on the income for each of the households, but generally we're looking at, and don't quote me on this, roughly between 600 to 1,100 per unit. And again, it just depends on the household income. So I don't envision the prices being any higher than $1,100
bedroom,
per month.
$1,100 for how many bedrooms?
That would be the 2 bedrooms.
That'd be the 2-bedroom, yeah.
It's 1 and 2
Okay.
bedrooms only.
And as the earlier developer pointed out, we too are restricted by the rents. The maximum rent is based on a matrix that's prepared by HUD.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I'm interested, and I know you said the increase is due to hard costs. Are there any specific items you can call out, you could share?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Is it? I'm looking through it.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Unless I'm in the wrong
In your
packet.
packet, let me see, general attachment, page 11 out of 20 for this is the estimate from the contractor.
11 out of, what page?
It says page 11 out of 20 for this particular item.
So
There should be two links at the bottom of this item. The first link is the one that you press on.
So generally, anything related to lumber, concrete, and steel required an uptick in pricing.
Plywood went up by 400%.
Yeah.
What went up 400%?
Plywood.
Raymond went up the price of lumber. Sure did.
And is it itemized, the items?
Yes. If you go to page 10 of 20 and then 11 and 12, you will see the contractor's final estimate.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Alfaro, I think.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Do you have other projects that you've developed throughout the city or throughout other neighborhoods similar to this?
Riva?
Riva?
Okay. This will be their first project with the city.
In North Miami.
Yeah, however, they have other projects that they've done in Broward and Dade. That was part of when the city put out an RFP to find the nonprofit development company. When they applied, they had to show project completed and where they did it. but this will be their first one here.
Right, and you guys will own the project, this is your development company.
Rasha, just to be clear, the estimate came in higher than the budget, what we're saying.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So that's why they need the additional 386.
Well, I was trying to see if there was a change order or a difference in here.
No,
Now
no,
I got what
It
you're
was
saying.
just
Okay.
getting the quotes. Actually, the good news about it is in their estimate, because we had, originally when we did the grant over a year ago, we had estimated the elevator to be like 100,000. That's why we wrote that in there. But based on the estimate from the contractor, it's like 60,000 and change. So, that's the reason why they're asking only for the 386. Some of the costs I saw went down, but the main ones, lumber and so on, went up.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Charles?
Oh, no, I just want to say, I feel exactly what they're going through because I just renovated a house over the summer, and I know it costs a lot. I think we should say, thank you very much for doing business with us, and then I like the idea of the project. It looks very nice and clean and everything. I love it, and I'll definitely think we should help them out to go through because they said they're ready. And I think the city is ready. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I think this will be a very nice neighborhood project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, without any other additional questions from the board members, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
We got 3
Madam
seconds.
Executive
okay?
Director, is there an actual, because it says discussion item.
No, I
so-
know, we're going to have to ratify it after.
Okay.
So basically, the motion is to approve the increase.
Yes.
Yes.
For the construction costs, and they intend to get it done by March 20th.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and several seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. CRA attorney report.
Thank you.
No report, just thank you again for approving my budget for next year and my engagement. Appreciate it. Had a little,
Okay.
I can't pirate all day.
Executive director, any?
I just wanted to, I was remiss in introducing to the new members, and some of you have, in case you don't know,
Yes, congratulations.
the woman behind me, Gail McDonald, she's our operations and programs manager. So you will see her coming to these meetings with me and sometimes also participating in these meetings. I believe in always creating a succession plan for the staff. And Gail she's the second oldest CRA employee, right after me.
Oh, okay.
I think you mean longest.
Right. And through the ranks, she was the grants coordinator, the administrator. Now she's the operations and programs manager. So she oversees the operations of the CRA and makes sure that not only are the bills paid, the contracts, everything is done perfect. When the auditor stands in front of you every year to say there were no issues because of Ms. McDonald. So, it's okay, Ms. McDonald Jr. So I just wanted to make sure I introduced her to you all.
Congratulations, Gail.
So this year, last week was the FRA conference. Mr. McDermott did attend. Some of our staff members attended. Councilwoman Estimate Irvin was appointed on the board of directors for the FRA, for the Florida Redevelopment Association. So for 1 year, she is an officer of the board. So we congratulate her for that. In December, I will be bringing you the budget that was approved by the board so I can walk you through what was presented and so on and so forth. We will be busy as a committee and as a board because, like I said, now that we're going through the process of amending the plan, I just want to make sure that you are aware and, be mindful. Please bear with us as we always check for quorum and to make sure that we're able to get the projects moving. We need a minimum of 7 members to get the committee happening and for us to get the project. So for the next 6 months, please bear with us. Thank you.
When is
All
our
right.
next meeting?
It would be December, because it's the first Monday of the month.
I'll be out of town.
Okay.
Okay, is there any public comment? Public out there? Any old business? Any
It would
new
be December
business?
6th. Our
Pardon?
next meeting is December 6th.
December
time?
6th.
Always at 6:30, yes.
All right, thank you all very much. Congratulations to the new board members and to our CRA attorney, and certainly to our executive director. Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, Blanca.
We have to leave these.